Real talk, I want to discuss why we have such an issue with giving Black Americans, particularly, reparations in this country. I think that when I'm talking about this, I'm not talking about the slavery end of the deal, which, I mean, yes, that is, we're waiting for that. And the more or less idea that Black people need reparations in order to better their communities, because that's not true. There are many ways that the Black community can tomorrow improve the daily living of them and their fellow people in their communities. That has nothing to do with money or cash reparations from the government. But when we're talking about specific harms that have been done to a community that has led to generational trauma that is passed down throughout family to family, has been the staunch opposite of the white privilege, where those people instead got the ability to build on generational wealth and income by owning property and such, we are going to discuss why it is that in regards to the harms literally done that we have on file, we have on record, we can see these things were done in terms of the redlining, in terms of Jim Crow, segregation. All these things were codified into law, and all of these things played a part into why we did not have the fairest shake straight out the bat of slavery, which, once again, not even really the focus of the reparations argument I'm making here. We've given reparations to Native Americans in 1946, I believe. The United States took land. We took this over from like the 1600s, okay? It was done, okay? We've already taken, that was just about as long as slavery has existed, but in the last century alone, Native Americans got reparations for it. And hey, good on them. I'm glad they got some money for the terrible atrocities that were committed to them over the course of the time that they were their own free people to being essentially shuttled off into a reservation to die. We've given reparations to the native people of Hawaii after illegally annexing their land and then selling their land and making it so that land was mostly owned by white colonists that came there, or, you know, white Americans that now came to move to a new state that was formed. And hey, we're not completely estranged to giving reparations to Black Americans. During the Tuskegee experiments, well, maybe not during them, but 10 years after, actually, I think it was more than 10 years. It might have been multiple decades. But hey, we got an apology and we got reparations. Holy shit. Well, not we, because, you know, not every Black person was a part of the Tuskegee experiments, but the people involved got some sort of cash payment. Their families were compensated to some extent. We segregated the country, meaning whites and Blacks were completely separated in a bunch of daily facets of life: bathrooms, water fountains, restaurants, businesses, homes, loans that were given out to people. All of it was met with different criteria and different standards depending on the color of your skin and depending on who your daddy was. The fact that the people and the families, the descendants of the people who are, the people who were alive during the Tulsa Race Massacre are still alive today. Some of them are, at least. The fact that they were never given reparations is crazy to me. And it should be crazy to you. That's unacceptable. That's actually crazy. Literal government forces are helping to firebomb an entire city or part of a city because its Black population has made the larger white population angry, right? And to be transparent, what happened was that a Black teen was accused of sexually assaulting a white elevator operator, and when a white mob formed outside the courthouse, a Black mob also formed outside the courthouse to prevent any sort of lynchings, as I'm sure it wasn't uncommon in the area. Most of this Black force consisting of veterans from the First World War, giving birth to the term Black Air Force Energy. Cities that actively engaged in redlining and other practices that kept Black families from acquiring true generational wealth that their white counterparts were getting by the dozen were never compensated. I mean, in some places like Tallahassee, Oklahoma, there's a fight for it just starting to happen now, where the people are starting to join into a coalition to make some sort of push for actual legislative help for those families affected by those things that we could verifiably prove was happening in certain places. Or how, you know, towns have been flooded simply because people wanted new lakes in the area. People wanted to get rid of the Black people living there. XYZ, Central Park used to be an actual town. Did you know that? It's crazy. I just learned that not so long ago. Now, I'm not saying, once again, to touch back on the previous subject that I just mentioned, that cash reparations is the only way to pull black people out of the immense amount of poverty and general strife that they find them in their communities. I think culturally, there's a big issue and a big discussion to have around talking about why or what we're glorifying and how we can change that to shift to a more education focused, which is a westernized education system. Yes, absolutely. But we don't really have much else to do in a country that is surrounded by other Western European and European peoples. It's not about necessarily assimilating, but finding the identity within ourselves and also realizing that we can't keep promoting guns, violence, and drugs. And I mean, maybe guns, because guns are cool. Everyone loves guns. I mean, even if you don't love guns, you kind of secretly like guns because you watch action movies probably. But hey, maybe you're the pacifist type. I don't know. And I know there are some even in our own community that would say we should resegregate legally, at least, because we were the most successful when we were segregated. And I get the sentiment behind that, but I don't think you understand how easily that makes us susceptible to being victimized, susceptible to being targeted by other populations. We did not learn about the flooding of Central Park until we were adults. We didn't learn about that in school. I didn't learn about that in school, at least. And if no one had brought it up to me, or if I hadn't looked it up online myself, I would still never know about it. And I guarantee there are a large majority of people who still don't know about those very things. And that's insane. Mainly when we have made the efforts to join in with the community as a whole, we've done great things. Unfortunately, other things happen, like the drug war. But hey, outside of slavery, and outside of that, obviously, because, like, come on, that was like 100 years ago, right? It's literally 2023. Those, get over it. Ho. Even less than that. Okay, there's still plenty of evidence that there's been institutional ways of repressing black people. But hey, we're gonna fix it. We're gonna fix it one step at a time. I believe, I have faith. I'm not a doomer. I'm not a black pillar. Okay, I have a lot of optimism in me. I still think there's time to make up for the horrible human rights violations that have been going on in this country for X amount of years. We can go back to any point in history. Now, if we can acknowledge the fact that slavery happened, right, and apologize for it, which I think the United States officially did in 2009, why haven't we talked about the actual things that were owed to black Americans and their descendants by the government that never was really fulfilled? You all know the phrase 40 acres and a mule, I'm sure, but I don't think there's much else that has been more of a lie to black Americans than that. Granted, the person who was going to enact those sorts of plans to make that follow through happen was assassinated, and the person who came after him was like, yeah, nah, we're not doing that. You know, I can't really see how we live in a world, in a country, in a state that has openly acknowledged that there was a great crime done against people, a great disservice, and I'm being polite, literally paid the people who owned human beings. We paid the slave owners, by the way. Slave owners got reparations, if you didn't know that. Go look that up. That is also. And then it wasn't a big deal, or wasn't talked about at the very least until it was properly addressed in 2009, where the United States officially apologized. Thanks. Native Americans were able to get reparations for something that happened to them before this country was even formed. Properly, I mean, right? Good for them. I'm happy for them. That amounted to $1.3 billion, which was only like $1,000 each to each person, or the money was given out to community leaders and then dished out from there. Actually, I kind of like that. That's kind of hot. And I'm not saying that black people are going to necessarily only need cash reparations to lift them out of poverty. I think free education would probably be another great step towards giving black communities the chance to catch up and lessen the gap between their white counterparts, particularly in this country. Incentivizing parents to send their kids to higher education because it'll cost them nothing is a great way to get people to want to send their kids to school, because they know more or less that it will be a better outcome for them, their kids, if they go and get that higher education than not. Because as Obama said, not all our kids can be LeBron James or Lil Wayne. And I don't think there's a compelling argument that I've heard yet that makes it so that I'm convinced that black people have been given every opportunity they've had to pull themselves out of the mud and have have been given time and time again a chance to join the community at large without there being some sort of large-scale discrimination, at least on a government scale, or even on a smaller scale discrimination by a local housing board. You can't convince me of that, and if you do have evidence of that, I'd love to see it. But until then, I think that if you genuinely believe still that black people don't deserve any sort of reparations for the atrocities committed to them in this country, then you either are just racist, which, you know, hey, just admit that, or you're ignorant, which is almost just as bad. Hey guys, thank you for watching. Make sure you like and subscribe. The video, it always helps. This is the second season and first episode of the Real Talk with Senpai series that I like to do, that I've done on a previous channel, and now I'm bringing it here. Make sure if you guys want to have conversations with me about anything that I talk about on these shows, you can always click the bottom link down below and join the Discord, or you can comment in the comment section, tell me what you think, and I'll get back to you as soon as I can. Thank you again for watching. Stay safe and stay beautiful.